So this is our final panel for the day. It's our only panel for the day.
I was trying to cheat, and it's going to get me in trouble. Hang on.
So the wonderful gentleman who's running around is also involved with Circle City Con. He's involved with B-Side San Antonio. He is the organizer for B-Side San Antonio. And he also is now on the speaking circuit because he has developed his career by volunteering at various different cons. And so it is definitely a role model to follow. So is this me? You're quite welcome. So are we done? Are we?
Check, check.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You guys can hear me?
Okay, we're great. So I always have fun with this panel because it is a really great way for people to see that recruiters are real people.
I'm a robot.
They actually do exist. And one of the things when I came into this industry is that everyone was bad-mouthing recruiters. And there's actually several YouTube channels about it. There's also several Twitter handles about it. There is so much bad-mouthing going on about recruiters that it was hindering job search for many job seekers because they didn't want to talk to a recruiter, because they thought the recruiter was stupid, that the recruiter was unethical, that the recruiter was not doing their job. Well, I hate to tell you, yeah, there are going to be people like that in any industry. Unfortunately, you're closing yourself off to opportunities if you don't network with recruiters. So I'm going to have each one of the recruiters up here introduce themselves, briefly tell us what kind of positions you're hiring for, and one thing people do not know about you. And I'm going to end with you last because I know exactly what you're going to say. I'm going to start with Megan down here from Cylance.
I can't wait to hear no one knows about you.
I have to pick something that's like politically correct, I suppose. My name is Megan Caladonna. I work with BlackBerry Cylance. I'm not sure if everybody's familiar, but BlackBerry just bought Cylance out in February. It's been an amazing merger. We're super excited about it. We're hiring for pretty much everything across red team, blue team, 24/7 SOC analysts, threat hunting operations, all of that, as well as DevSecOps at SDLC. Something nobody knows about me. I don't know, I'm not a strong swimmer. I can't swim. I cannot swim.
Okay.
Boo.
I don't tell everybody that.
Wait, you shoot a boo out of that? That's
Someone
okay.
booed me.
Yeah, that's all right.
It's okay.
My name is Richard Cho. I'm the head of recruiting at Robinhood. For the last 10 years of my 22-year career, I've been at hypergrowth startups. So these are startups like Facebook, where I saw them grow from 500 to over 6,000, Dropbox, and now here I am again doing it all over again. So I love the pain, it turns out. We're hiring across the board. Every company, every startup gets into this inflection point where you're going from hiring the one unicorn that could do everything, like can you do everything under the sun under security, to now we're actually building out our organization. And so security engineers, program managers, anything you can think of, we're building the team.
So what is someone not?
Oh, yeah. In high school, I sang in a Garth Brooks country cover band. There you go.
Can you give us a list?
Well, give me a tune and I'll do it.
Oh, Lord.
I did it. Karthik will confirm. I sang a country song during my orientation in front of the entire company, which is super.
You don't know if you're going to follow up on that. Okay, so Erica.
Not nearly as exciting. Hi, my name's Erica Schneider. I work for a company called Valimail. We're an email security company, hiring for both San Francisco and Denver. The roles that we're hiring for, software engineers across the board, using a lot of Golang on our platform, Ruby as our full stack, React on the front end as well, program managers, product managers alike. So I've got a lot of great roles, even sales. I head up all of technical recruiting, so I don't want to shortchange our non-technical departments within Valimail, but we're also hiring for a lot of sales, customer success, and so forth. So Erica Schneider, Valimail, connect with me on LinkedIn. Happy to connect with anybody here. Now, something that nobody knows, well, I'm moving to Denver because we're opening an office in Denver in 2 months. So the office is already open, but I'm spearheading that. So that was a really exciting project. And so now we're hiring in San Francisco and in Denver.
Nice.
Matt.
All right. Hey, everyone. I'm Matt Duren. I'm Senior Manager of Talent Acquisition and Talent Attraction. If you want to know what that is, let me know, because I'm still trying to figure that out myself. I'm at Tenable. Been there for almost 7 years now. Prior to that, I was at Geico for about 10 years doing both technical and college recruiting. Still do college recruiting today with Mark back there. Mark's our college recruiter. And I'll shout out to my folks. That's one of my senior recruiters, Tim. Mark's on my team. John is not on my team, but she's cool anyway, and then Jeanette here as well. Things that we're hiring for, actually a lot of remote research. So if you know anything about, a little bit of pen testing skill set, it's not pen testing. Your goal is to build plugins for Nessus. So you do get to hack things and do all that fun stuff, but you're writing scripts at the end of the day for Nessus plugins. Also on the pre-sales side, sales engineering, we actually have something here in Las Vegas where you could actually be a sales engineer for Tenable in Vegas. The manager for that team is wandering around. If you're interested, I will connect you personally for that person. And then ProServe, a lot of things globally for that kind of stuff. So anything to do with Nessus installs. And sales. I already said sales. I said sales engineering. Customer success, things like that. That's all in Maryland. I want to know what you want to say about me that nobody knows.
Costumes?
Oh, well, yeah. I've run around in an inflatable T-Rex costume before. I almost brought it here, and I almost ran in with it. That was my plan, but it wouldn't fit in my luggage, so...
So Matt and I have worked together a good 10, 12 years, and I retired from an organization, and all I really wanted was someone to come out in a T-Rex outfit, and at my retirement speech, he came running out. So it was pretty awesome.
It's
really
kind of hard to run on
awesome.
those things, too, just so you know.
So my first question, Richard, give me one thing that a job seeker has done that really impressed you, and what is the biggest mistake that people make when they're applying for a job?
Well, I'll try to keep this security related, and can I make it not impress me? I think so. This is actually documented. So there's a number of folks that fit into this category, but very early on, a 17-year-old programmer decided to hack into Facebook and make like weird things, make it look like MySpace, do some other things. And so both Mark and Dustin Moskowitz, the co-founders of Facebook, decided to call him in. And Kris was like, he told his dad, he's like, Dad, I'm going to take my phone with me. I'm pretty sure I'm going to go to jail. But if I do go to jail, please bail me out. And the dad's like, what did you do? And he's like, don't worry about it. I'll talk to you later. He gets into the meeting with Mark and Dustin and gets a job offer. So Kris was one of our early engineers in security at Facebook. So it wasn't my story because I wasn't there yet, but it's Facebook's story.
So what is one thing that people do all the time that just flubs up the process for them?
I think just assuming that an application means that you're going to have visibility. You got to put a little bit of the work into it. By the numbers, the number of applicants to any opening is in the tens of thousands. And so as a result, you want to differentiate yourself. And so that's one thing.
So why don't you pick that up? What are some of the things that people can do to differentiate themselves in the process?
Yeah, that's great. I think follow-up is super important. Finding who it is that might be the recruiting manager or the hiring manager and reaching out to them on LinkedIn. You know, you're looking for a red team role, you really want to work at X, Y, and Z company. Just reach out to someone in that organization. A lot of times that sets you aside from it. And one thing that I think is the biggest thing that we see a lot of times is just, if you don't know something, just don't know it. It's fine. And just look it up and be open and honest about that. I think that that's probably the biggest thing that we see is people, when they do have shortcomings, is when they just try to make things up on the calls or on the interviews.
So Erica, same two questions that I gave Richard. So something that people have impressed you with, and what are a mistake that people have done?
One of my favorite things are when candidates come with a leave behind. Like, I get super impressed. Like, they'll be really creative, and it depends on the role. UX, UI designer, not always. Sometimes a product manager will come in and they'll have one of them had a candy bar with their business card and their face on it and their contact information. They're like, hey, to sweeten the deal, to hire me, here's my leave behind. And that just really made them stand out. I didn't end up hiring the person because I had a much stronger candidate, but that really impressed me and connected with them. Still stay in contact with them today. If there's anything I can hire them for, I will. Sorry, what was the second question?
Something you see that people flub up all the time.
Applying for roles that they're not at all. I'll get Scrum Masters applying for a director of product management, just throwing spaghetti at the wall to see it sticks. I like to see at least a 65 to 70% fit. It doesn't happen, no one's ever 100% fit, hardly ever, but 65, 70% is definitely needed.
So Matt, let's get this a little bit more granular in a technical interview. So what are things that people really mess up in a technical interview, either face-to-face or over the phone?
I mean, the number one thing is always having examples. I mean, so a lot of people put things on their resume, and let's pick on college students a little bit here. They go into an interview, they're going for an internship, they did a class in something, and they put it on their resume, and then they can't talk to it. If you're going to put something on the resume, have an example of almost every single skill or every bullet point that you have on there. Be able to tell more stories about that particular bullet. It should be just a quick tidbit on what it was, and there should be a lot more underneath that. If you can't talk or give an example for something that could go on for a couple of minutes and several follow-up questions, it's probably best to leave it off, or at least put it in a related interests category or something like that. So I would say be able to talk about the things that you put as a highlight on your resume.
So one thing that that I've talked about a lot is getting experience in the community when you don't have work experience. So what are some of the other ways that you want people to show that they have work experience? Matt, and then Erica, and then we'll go down the line.
Yeah, I think coming up something like this, I mean, I think we've learned by the 194 countries, one community aspect of B-Sides is that there's one in every city in the U.S. at least, and those that are international. There's something big nearby. And they're really just driven by volunteerism. I mean, everybody does it for their own. Nobody's getting paid for that. Even if it's just the people running the doors out front. That has nothing to do with security, but you're around it. You take that time to do the volunteerism, and then you take advantage of the rest of the day. I don't know what the shifts are for that stuff, but maybe 2 hours of volunteering, doing something completely unrelated to InfoSec, just checking badges, just checking people in at registration. But then you get that ability to go and see the rest of the day's talks and learn so much and do the hallway con like we talked about before. There's a lot of things you can do just in your local community. If you don't have one in your local community, start one up. There's a lot of places that are kind of really want this type of experience, and go out there, and if you can't find it for yourself, create it.
Erica?
I would say, especially on the engineering side, if it's engineering, GitHub repositories. I look at those aside from any engineering assessment that I ever send out. I always look at a GitHub repo. If it's not engineering related, like Matt said, to piggyback off of that a little bit, meetups are a great way. And if you don't have one, start one in your community. You can learn a lot from that community. I've gone to many different language-specific meetups or career-specific meetups, and I pick up something new every single time. And there's a myriad from junior, novice to very senior people in those groups, and you can always learn from each other.
Yeah, and if I could add on to that, ask your company for help.
Yeah.
Ask them, say, hey, I want to do this, and maybe they'll offer space. Maybe they'll offer a couple of bucks for pizza to pay for things.
Yeah. So one thing, building on what both Erica and Matt said, was, when you come back from Hacker Summer Camp, write yourself a trip report. What did you do on your summer vacation? It sounds really bogus, but there are going to be several aha moments that you're going to get. And if your company provided you to come here, give them a trip report. What did you learn? What were some of the new trends you saw? Did you help out? Did you volunteer? Did you work on your soft skills while you were volunteering? We just did a study that said, community volunteering, people were learning planning, communication, budgeting, leadership, all of the soft skills that we're looking for in this community. Also looking at CTFs, because there are a lot of times when you're going to go through that interview process and people are going to say, well, what did you fail at? Well, no one's going to really want to say what you failed at your last job or your current job. But you certainly had fail opportunities in a CTF. You were there for a short term. You had limited resources. You had limited time. You were meeting with people, and you were going against an adversary you had never known before. Gee, what does that sound like? That's work experience. So if you're not tallying up the CTFs that you're part of and incorporating them in sort of your story that you tell in an interview about your work experience, you're leaving a lot off the table. So to this side of the panel, can you explain to the audience sort of the interview process at your companies? Because a lot of times people think it's 1 week and I'll get the job. I have a colleague that spent 18 months from the beginning of the application to the final, job offer. She actually took another job in the interim. So, Richard, can you sort of like explain the process? Because a lot of people aren't prepared for the long haul.
Right.
And then Megan.
Let me also caveat this by saying there are certain companies that take a while because they could afford to take a while because they already have a brand. We're not in that boat. We're new to a highly competitive market, and we're hiring a ton by the volume. So what we try to do is try to stay within a 2 to maximum 3 week time period. There's a engagement call with the recruiter, just to make sure that you are aligned to the role that you're applying to, or the role that we obviously reached out to you. And believe it or not, we get it wrong sometimes. So we might reach out to you and you're like, I don't do any of that. And we're like, oops, okay, sorry. And we try to learn from that. Then you go to a screen, which is more technical in nature, just to validate that those skills that you have are valid. And that's usually done over the phone. If there's coding involved, there's a shared way to actually show your code while you're talking to someone on the phone. And then it's the on-site. And then from the on-site, by that time period, I'm already within 2 weeks, depending on your schedule and depending on our schedule, and an offer within the 3rd week or so is what we're aiming to do.
Megan?
Yeah, our process, can you guys hear me on this? Hello. Our process is usually actually a little bit longer, sometimes shorter though. So it depends, if we're working on our consulting practice and our consulting roles, sometimes we need people in seats, that week. And so it can be really, really quick. And those can be actually more challenging sometimes than the longer roles because it takes a little bit longer to get to know that person. Our recruiting process always starts off with an intake call, and that's usually led by me or one of our other recruiters, and it's actually technical questions. We have a hard time of getting resumes that aren't 100% true, and so it's actually led by some technical questions that we kind of go through, and we're able to weed out some folks through there. We don't do many on-site interviews though. A lot of our people work remotely or they work at client sites, and so you don't get an opportunity to actually go on-site and meet the team. So my biggest thing is just trying to get them to meet with at least 2 or 3 hiring managers and just focusing on you're interviewing us just as much as we're interviewing you as well.
Can I add to my?
Sure.
So you triggered something. So one of the things that's important to note is there's going to be things that actually add to the time. Part of that is if you're the first that we reached out to, you can imagine we need to take some time to evaluate as many candidates as we can. Even if you're perfect the first time, we want to at least evaluate a good cohort of candidates, and that might take a week or 2 to get a full cohort before we invite you on site. The other could be maybe we didn't get enough signal during the interview process and we want to invite you back. That could take another week or so. So, there's sort of the goal of trying to get through from beginning to end and a whole interview process within 3 weeks. It could be extended based on those circumstances.
So it's all right in the process to ask what is the interview and hiring process. That actually should be one of your questions. What are the steps that I'm going to go through? Who am I going to meet with? When am I going to meet with them? And how long should this process take? Because we all have sort of an assumption in our mind that it's going to take maybe 2 weeks and it ends up taking 6 to 8 weeks. And a lot of that isn't because they're not interested. They're trying to line up other people's schedule. I mean, we all know what it's like to try to get together for drinks with some friends. Imagine trying to put 8 or 9 people scheduled together. So how many of you guys get thank you notes?
Not enough. Honestly, every single time. you should follow up with the person, not just the recruiter, but every person that you spoke to. Ask the recruiter for their email, and send it to every single person you spoke to, every time.
Anyone else want to add to that?
And I agree, it's not that hard to find people's emails. It's usually first dot last name at company.com.
Is it a way you differentiate? I mean, is it how you differentiate your candidates?
Yeah.
I think so.
My managers differentiate that way as well.
Yeah. I take stock in that, and also customize your thank you to each and every different person, because my engineering team does talk to each other, and if you spoke to the hiring manager and then one of the engineering leads and one of your fellow engineers or whomever it might be in the team, they're going to know that it was just copied and pasted, and put some effort into it. State maybe what you really found interesting about your conversation with that person, but the most you can possibly do is at least customize that note, please.
I also have another thing to add to that one too, is also if they asked you a question that stumped you, write it down and answer that question in that email. And that speaks volumes to our team.
So what happens, what's interesting is that when people don't get accepted for the job, they then sort of wipe that company off their list. So Matt and whoever else wants to jump in on this, if you don't get accepted for one particular job, do you just sort of write that company off your list, Matt?
No, I mean, there's always going to be something different. Next year, next week, people might leave that company and open up another job, and that person might be a good fit for it. There's somebody I've been talking to for like 3 years. I think the person's awesome. I would love to see this person work for us. We just haven't had the right opportunity for them. And if they had just written me off the first time I said no, we wouldn't be talking next week about another opportunity that's come up. It's keep at it, build a relationship. That's really it's a game. I understand that. There's things that you have to do, there's things that we have to do as companies to keep you engaged. But it's your career. If you think it's a great company to work for and you would like to see yourself there, it may not be today. It may be next year. But I'd say keep the doors open always, unless they screwed you over some way. But.
And Richard is a really great example. I mean, you heard all the various different companies that he has been part of. If you are not including Richard in your networking, you are missing out on so many opportunities. They're all going to be lining up for you. But realize that recruiters also talk to each other. And they'll say, hey, I can't tell you how many groups that Matt and I are part of that we say, hey, we just met this really great candidate. It just wasn't the right fit. Is there anyone else out there that can take this person? I can vouch for them. I've done the interviewing. I've done everything. I think they would be great. We just don't have the right position. So, do you guys network with job seekers and keep them sort of, in your pipeline?
Absolutely. If I can't hire them, I always say if it's not right now, I hope it's in the future. And if it's not at Valimail, then who knows? Maybe it's at the company that I'll be at in the future. You never know. Like Matt said, it's all about building that relationship and connecting. And I've stayed in contact with people for years. Same person with a candy bar. I still talk to them. I just can't hire them just because I don't have anything open for them right now. But I've referred them to, my recruiting background includes agencies, Kforce and Robert Half, and I will send them to all of the recruiters that I know there. Please help find this person a job.
So can I just add?
Yeah.
Look, that's definitely aspirational on both sides. So I actually think a lot of recruiting organizations don't do a good job following up from folks that have failed the interview process. Just to be frank, and then to the point of this panel, you should make sure you try to make that connection. But it's awkward. We know it's like a breakup. We're like, sorry you didn't get the job, and you're like, and there's a little bit of emotions, human, the whole thing. The most important thing is that knowing that talent's not static. Like you're going to develop some new skills. That's probably going to be really important. I know of 2 examples in my mind in my 22-year career where we said no to somebody only for that person to actually be one of the most important contributors to a technology or something. And then now we're like, can you please come work for us? So the moral of the story is recruiting organizations should do a good job staying in contact with folks that were rejected, and candidates should do a good job trying to stay in contact with the company as well.
So how many in the audience can say that you have 5 to 7 recruiters that are in your network that you network with? Not the people that are spamming you. Okay, all the recruiters in the back of the room, thank you. So we have people that we're go-to for restaurant recommendations, movie recommendations or vacation recommendations. Your career is somewhat important. Why are you not adding recruiters to your network and keeping in touch with them and saying, hey, I just passed my CISSP, that was something that was required for this job. I mean, I know recruiters who check in on a regular basis. You can check in with them. We have a few minutes left. I want to take questions from the audience. We have a lovely woman back there with the microphone, so do we have any questions?
What do you feel that college students are missing or fresh out of college they're lacking in?
Is that to anybody in particular, or you were looking right at me?
I guess for anybody.
Yeah, so I think a lot of, I love the energy, I love the aspiration. You're not going to be CEO next month, all right? I think the willingness to do some of the work that, is at the entry level. It's there for a reason, because there are things that you need to pick up that later on in life you're going to need for your career. Having a CISSP as a 21-year-old, that's cool, but that's a management and strategy based certification. Are you going to build on that? And then speaking of certifications, I have a kind of a love-hate relationship. I love hating on certifications because I think they're just great for being able to say I passed the test. I knew the information for the time it took me to study and close the book and then open the test book and submit on the answers, but I don't retain the information. I see a lot of entry-level people in our tech support interviews that we go through the OSI model, all networking based, all this stuff, all the layers of networking, and they say, oh, I remember that from my studying. It's like, well, then it didn't really work, did it? So I say, have some humility in saying, I need to do some of this grunt work. And I know it sounds bad, but it is grunt work. But there's a reason behind it. And then make sure that studying sticks. There's a lot of, Googling an answer, I hear it all the time. It's not that impressive, but I understand that's the way it works. But know enough of the basics to know that I need to go to the basic level, and then if it's advanced, then I got to go look it up.
Yeah.
Anyone else have anything for college students?
Yeah, I think so. Look, getting a job is really it's not easy, especially if you're just graduating, and so you graduate with these like credentials, and you think it's like an inventory of things that you need to know in order to get in and order to do your job well. And I haven't seen that really bear out really well, both in the interview process and also long term. What most college students don't end up taking the time doing is like, why should I know this? Why do I like this? Why am I passionate about this? And it's important to know that alignment. Like you chose this particular profession and curricula intentionally, and understand the why behind that. Because that, by the way, when you're asked questions and you're passionate about it, not only does it show up emotionally, but your knowledge is right there as well, right? So understand the why behind it.
Any other questions? Come on. We have one over here.
What attributes do you weigh heavier than others in terms of hiring an applicant? Like the ability to be a team player or high technical ability, or what do you, cherish the most?
So Megan and then Erica.
I would say passion, like he just said, it shows through for sure. And if you're passionate about it, you come to things like this, you do research on your own, it shows through your entire career.
Home lab.
We're so, yeah.
Sorry.
It's 50-50 with us. I hire equally for skill set as I do for, that god-awful word culture fit. But what that really means is that and just to piggyback off of everybody, what we've said is all passion, but also passion about the company that you're interviewing for. Not just the subject matter or the things that you studied or the certifications that you've received and worked really hard on. It's also about the company, saying why you want to work at this firm, why you're passionate about their product or what they've done, bringing up recent social media posts or news articles, good, bad, or otherwise. But bringing that up and saying, hey, I read this about you guys. I really like this about this company. Here's why I am here. And that passion will exude out of you, seriously.
So I'm going to give each one of you just a closing statement you can make, something you wanted to say or something new. So Megan, and we'll go all the way down.
Join BlackBerry Silence. We're so great.
She took the words out of my mouth. I also was going to say join BlackBerry Silence. No, I was joking. Robin. Look, so two things. You guys are going to not only be applicants and candidates, but you'll also be hiring managers as well. Don't fall into this trap of assuming that experience is a good proxy for good. Experience is not a good proxy for good. It doesn't matter what school you went to. It doesn't matter what companies you worked for. It really matters about the core skill sets. And that you're aligned to the work and the mission of the company, and you have that passion. So don't fall into that trap because it's out there.
Connect with me on LinkedIn, Erica Schneider, Valimail. I might not be able to hire you personally at Valimail, but I will be able to help you in some endeavor, one way or another, make an introduction to my network. I've got over 10,000 of them. So please, I invite you to connect with me. Thank you.
Matt?
All right. Recruiters are known for throwing out a lot of messages on LinkedIn to connect, or I have this, hot opportunity or hot job or whatever it is. I encourage all of you to really look at some of those messages, because one day you're going to be kind of that person that's getting all those in-mails and set in your job, and I'm not really going to look. Pay attention to who's sending them. I think there's a lot to be said about the quality of messages you'll receive over your career from recruiters looking for you to connect. Tables turn when that happens. You guys are sending us applications at some point in your career, and then we're out there sending you invitations to apply for jobs. Have a very critical eye about who you're engaging with. You can do a quick review of somebody's LinkedIn profile, a recruiter. If they've been doing it for about 3 months, and before that they were like a server or a bartender or something like that, I'm not saying they're not good. I'm just saying that there's probably somebody out there that you should be paying more attention to. If they've been doing it for 10 years, for 15 years or whatever, that means they have a lot of connections, their quality. So be on the lookout for who's sending those messages. If it's not the right job today and he's like, I don't want to do that, at least say, hey, I'm not interested. You look like you know what you're doing. You've been in this for a while. Or they have something fun on their profile. Just connect with them and say, hey, you look like you know what you're doing. I'd like to just stay in touch. Maybe there's something else down the line. So when you've made that change in your career to where you're the sought-after person, keep an eye out who's sending you messages, because it may be one of us up here, and be gentle on us, please.
Yeah. So, in summary, here at Hacker Summer Camp, before you go home, before you get on the plane, write a trip report. What did you learn? Who did you connect with? To make sure that you're connecting with all of the recruiters that are in the room, and anyone else, yes, dear, anyone else that is someone that just you had a really passionate click with, because there's also this thing called the employee referral program. So if you met someone who really loved where they worked and you understood what they were doing and you were really passionate about that, be sure you're including that in the networking. Be sure to ask at the beginning of an interview, what is the overall interview process? So that you know from A to Z what are the different steps. And when you go through all of these different steps, please write a thank you note to everyone that you have time to talk with. Realize that technical versus passion is going to be sort of a seesaw. Make sure that you're talking about the technical skills that you really know, not just those that you Googled about. Those that you really can bring value to the company, and also being able to show the passion that you have for that kind of work you're doing and the company that you're going to go work for. Let's have a round of applause for our recruiters. So this concludes the first day of Higher Ground. It's been a great experience with the recruiters and participants and career coaches and resume reviewers. We'll be closing up in about 20-25 minutes, so take an opportunity meeting with the career counselors. We open up again tomorrow at 10 o'clock, and resume review and career coaching starts at noon tomorrow. Thank you.